Beautiful boxing fans, I come to you guys today with a question. Please let me know your answers in the comment section. I absolutely love your guys' opinions. And don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, there is no wrong opinion. So please don't be shy and chime in into the conversation. The question is this, ladies and gentlemen. We've all seen Canelo Alvarez at 168 for years now, so we know what we're gonna get. But when it comes to Bud Crawford, let me ask you this, ladies and gentlemen. How do you think Terence Bud Crawford will carry the weight at the super middleweight division? Let's talk about it, ladies and gentlemen. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Now, in my opinion, the first question that we need to be asking and the first thing that we need to be thinking about when it comes to this situation is the speed of Bud Crawford. Will Terence Bud Crawford actually be slower? Well, I think it's a no-brainer, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, Terence Bud Crawford is going to be slower. There is no question in my mind. Why? Because the man is simply human. I mean, the more you age and the more weight you gain, of course you're going to be slower. Now, that doesn't mean that he won't be an elite fighter anymore. No, of course not. When you talk about special fighters like Terence Bud Crawford and Canelo Alvarez, they can handle themselves against anyone on any given night in the worst circumstances possible. That is a fact, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get back into the discussion when it comes to Terence Bud Crawford carrying the 168 division, when it comes to the 168 pound weight. So if you actually think about it, Terence Bud Crawford, how is the man looking right now? I know, yes, I know that we have seen the new pictures of Bud Crawford with him looking absolutely massive, but I actually talked about this in one of my previous videos, ladies and gentlemen, which you can go back and check out. Terence Bud Crawford, don't let these pictures fool you, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let these pictures fool you. Yes, of course Terence Bud Crawford gained weight, but the pictures make it seem like Terence Bud Crawford looks like a heavyweight. Let me tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, the lighting and the pump and the angle, everything plays a part in how you look in pictures. You know what I mean? Like, this is a fact, ladies and gentlemen. I can show you 2 pictures of me taken within 24 hours, and in one picture, my physique looks completely different than the other picture. One picture I can take after having a unbelievable workout, with a nice sweat on, with a nice pump, with some nice lighting, and a nice angle. I would look completely different than when I look right now or getting out of bed, which I just did. So that plays a massive factor, ladies and gentlemen. So don't ever let these pictures fool you. Is Terence Bud Crawford gaining weight? Of course he's gaining weight, but not as much as you think he's gaining. And actually, his former opponent, his last opponent, Israel Madrimov, just came out and talked about this. He was like, I believe that Crawford can win this fight, but if he's actually putting on crazy weight, that's going to hinder him. And I agree. But the interviewer actually asked him, he was like, have you seen his pictures? He looks absolutely massive. And Madrimov knows this. Madrimov was like, yeah, it's just pictures. You know, Madrimov, like, he didn't really engage too much in the conversation because Madrimov knows that even if you look at Madrimov's pictures leading up to the Crawford fight, we all were like, oh my God, this guy is definitely on steroids. The man looks like the Incredible Hulk. But on fight night and in the weigh-in, with not the best lighting, with no pump, with no crazy angles, the man looked normal. Of course, he looked in unbelievable shape, but the man looked nothing like his pictures in camp. Why, ladies and gentlemen? Because like I said, the lighting, the picture, the pump, everything plays a factor, ladies and gentlemen. And this is the thing about Terence Bud Crawford. Yes, the man is going to be heavier, but the man won't be a lot heavier. And now, actually, if you look at his pictures with his shirt on, the man pretty much looks the same. I mean, yeah, he does look more dense, but he doesn't look like any of the picture that we have seen in the last few weeks with him shirtless and with the angles, pictures taking from downward angle. I mean, the man looks completely different. And I figured it out the moment that I saw him posting pictures for the 168, because if you actually think about it, Terence Crawford's body type, I mean, the man, I know his body type, fast metabolism. The man is ripped year round, even though like he doesn't need to be training in the craziest ways ever for him to remain in shape. The man just needs to stay active, and especially with him aging now, he's gonna need to be more careful with his training and smarter with his recovery and diet and all these things that play a massive role when you talk about elite peak level performance. So, now if we look at Terence Crawford's style, does his style rely on just purely speed? No. Just like Canelo Alvarez, they're both faster than most fighters, but what makes them special and what actually scored them all their devastating and most devastating and violent knockouts in their careers is their timing, ladies and gentlemen. Look at Canelo's timing and look at Crawford's timing when they score knockdowns. I mean, they are 2 steps ahead of you before they drop you. They don't just swing with a massive bomb or throw a 7-punch combination with lightning speed, hand speed, and they get the knockdown. No. It's either 1 or 2 shots. 1 shot as a decoy, like Bud Crawford versus Avanesian, and like Canelo Alvarez versus Munguia, if you actually think about it. The way that Canelo dropped Munguia, he threw 2 punches. The first one was a decoy. The second one dropped him. And Bud Crawford, same thing he did. Actually, both of them did the same combination, the uppercut hook. And this is all about timing. This is not about speed, because if it was about speed, they would have landed both shots and had intentions to knock you out with both shots as a combination. But no, their timing, ladies and gentlemen, their timing is absolutely impeccable. So yes, Terence Crawford will 100% be slower. He will have slower feet. I mean, he won't have slower hands by much than what we're used to seeing from Bud Crawford. But when you talk about his footwork, his feet, yes, they will be slower. But let me tell you this, ladies and gentlemen, I hear this narrative going on that the only path to victory for Bud Crawford, or Bud Crawford will run from Canelo. Ladies and gentlemen, when have we ever seen Bud Crawford run from anyone? Never. No matter who he fought, in what type of situation, in what type of high pressure circumstances, the man never ran and never will. Why? Not because, to be honest, the man never ran because simply it is not in his nature. It is not who he is. And even if he wanted to run, at 38 years old, with heavier legs, the man won't even think about it. Will he box in some spots? Absolutely. Will he be patient in some spots? Absolutely. But Terence Crawford is not your typical boxer. Terence Crawford is just like Canelo Alvarez, a fighter. You don't knock out 10 of your last 11 opponents. You don't go on in the last 9 years and a half, Terence Crawford knocked out everyone except Majimov. You don't go on a nearly 9-year knockout streak with being just a slick boxer. No way. You gotta be a fighter. And if you wanna be a fighter at the elite level, you gotta have better boxing skills than 99% of boxers. So just because we label someone as a fighter, that doesn't mean that they lack boxing skills. Like for example, Canelo is a fighter. Plant is a boxer. Pure boxer. But Canelo has better boxing skills than Plant. Canelo is a fighter. But on the other hand, Rigondeaux is a boxer. But Canelo has way better boxing skills than Rigondeaux. But because of Canelo's presence and power and mindset and Mexican blood and heritage, the man chooses to be a fighter. Not by, when I say choose, I don't mean choose like it's up to him. I mean the man is, with his attributes, when you combine everything together, it makes for a pound for pound demanding great fighter. And same thing goes for Bud Crawford. When you have power, when you have slickness, when you have skills, when you have IQ, when you have unbreakable mindset, when you have strength, when you have a chin, when you have all these things, you won't just be a boxer, ladies and gentlemen. You will turn into a fully fledged fighter. And not only will you be a fully fledged fighter, but you will be one of the greatest fighters of all time, like Canelo Alvarez and like Bud Crawford. And that is what makes this fight extremely special, ladies and gentlemen. That is what makes this fight one of the biggest and greatest fights of all time. And all I'm saying is this. Bring on September 13.